Okay, good evening and good Yom Tov. Today is big Yom Tov, Yud Kislev, the 10th day of Kislev. Today was, the 9th of Kislev was the birthday and the yahrzeit of the Mittel Rebbe. Okay, now we're back. Yeah, so today Tes Kislev was the birthday and the yahrzeit of the Mittel Rebbe, the second Chabad Rebbe, the son of the Alter Rebbe. And tonight,
Rabbi.
yeah,
Real important. That's huge because me and my wife, I told you we used to go there a couple of times when I was in Ukraine to Mittel Rebbe's oil.
Very good, very good.
That was a very special place for us. Wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. So, tonight, the Yud Kislev, the 10th day of Kislev, is the day of his redemption. It was like all Chabad Rebbes were imprisoned at one point or another. Of course, all for lofty reasons that they tried to spread Yiddishkeit and they tried to stop them and all kinds of things. And with Hashem's help, Hashem's miracles, they were released. But the Mittel Rebbe, he passed away actually the day before his first anniversary of his redemption. So he didn't celebrate the redemption in his lifetime. But of course, we do celebrate this day. The Mittel Rebbe explains what we know about him, how holy he was. And his life was Chassidus. He passed away in a very young age of 54 years old. But his life was literally filled with Chassidus. His entire life, he lived Chassidus. He took the teachings of his father, the Alter Rebbe, and he expanded on these teachings to explain it in what they call it, the Rechoives Ano, like the wide rivers. Like the Alter Rebbe was the well, and he was like the wide rivers, bringing it out to the outside. And they say that Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe, said about him, if you cut his hand, you wouldn't have blood running, you would have Chassidus running. So, in any case, a day of redemption is a day that is connected, brings redemption to all of us. All redemptions are connected. Redemption of Mitzrayim, redemption of all of the exiles, redemption of the Rebbes, and redemption of Mashiach. So let us make l'chaim. L'chaim, if you have l'chaim at home, take a l'chaim and say l'chaim. We should all be redeemed. You see what's happening around the world today. Redemption is right behind the corner. And we see it happening, and Hashem should help us, should see it without sufferings, no more sufferings, only in good ways. L'chaim, l'chaim. So today we're going to be learning from a Rashi explanation and a verse in this parsha, which is of course the parsha's Vayishlach. And we're going to be learning some interesting things. Number one, our love and connection to the Holy Land, Eretz Israel. And also lessons from Rabbi Akiva, an ancient sage, that his travel teaches about exploring new ideas. What do we learn when we travel places? You know, today, more than ever, people travel constantly. Back in the days, people were stuck in their shtetl. Today, people travel all over. And when you travel, you get to meet people, and you get to see things. And what do we travel for? We like to explore things. We like to explore different cultures. And here we learn from Rabbi Akiva, as we'll see soon, that there is everything what you see is to be used in a positive way. And even when you travel and you see new things, you use it in a positive way. So let's begin with a background of where we are holding in this week's Parsha. We are holding the travels of Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov our father. We learned in last week's Parsha how he traveled away from his father, from the Holy Land, all the way to Mesopotamia, to Haran, to his uncle Lavan, running away from his brother Esav that wanted to kill him. And in Haran, there he builds his family. He marries his wives, and he has his 11 children, 11 sons. And Hashem tells him it's time to go back. He goes. On the way, Lavan follows him and wanted to hurt him, and Hashem warned him not to hurt him. Long story short, Yaakov Avinu, he sends the angels that accompany him, sends them to Esav, and he thought Esav would forget about, after 20 years, he would forget about what happened, or he would make peace, but Esav still wanted to fight. And long story short, he sends his gifts, and he prays to Hashem, and he prepares for war. But at the end of the day, they make up, and Yaakov comes to the land of Israel, Eretz Israel, and that's where we are finding where Yaakov came to the city of Shechem, and he set up his tent in the city. And again, before, when he went to Haran, he went empty-handed. He had nothing with him. For whatever reason, we're not going into this now. But when he came back with a whole family, a whole fortune, a whole entourage, with all the blessings that Hashem blessed him with. So here, we're going to focus, when Yaakov came to Shechem, he settled his tent, and the Torah tells us that he bought a piece of land, a field, part of a field. And he bought it from the hands of Hamor, the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 kesita. That's what we find in the verse. Rashi will explain what that means. What is the 100 kesita? And based on this simple Rashi, the Rebbe gives a whole explanation. So let's begin. Let's look into this. Yeah, so this is what we find in the Torah. The Torah says, and he purchased the part of the field where he pitched his tent from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 kesita. Does anybody know what kesita is? I didn't know. So Rashi tells us what is kesita. So Rashi, kesita is a coin known as ma'a. That's the name of an ancient coin. They used to call it ma'a. Then Rashi quotes, and he says, Rabbi Akiva said, when I traveled to the cities by the sea, they called a ma'a kesita. Okay, so far so good. Questions? So here's a simple Rashi, right? Not much into it. He just tells us The Torah says Yaakov bought the land for 100 kesita, and Rashi just tells us what is kesita. He says, Rabbi Akiva said, when he traveled to the cities by the sea, far places, they called a ma'a kesita. However, that's not so simple. This is what we know now. Kesita is a ma'a, common biblical coin. I called it a ma'a, all right? However, we find that in the translations, that is way before Rashi, there was in the first century, in the second century, the first century was a translation of Rabbi Yonatan ben Uziel. He translated the Torah, and he said, he gives a different explanation of what kasita means, okay? And that's how he translates the verse that we just read. He says, he purchased the part of the field where he pitched his tent from the sons of Hamor, father of Shechem, for 100 gems. That is much different than what Rashi says. Rashi says it's 100 ma'a. Ma'a is a small coin. And the Yonatan ben Uziel says, no, it's 100 gems. Kesita means gems. Okay? Then there is another interpretation, the Targum of Onkelos. Onkelos was about 100 years later. And he says that he purchased the part of the field where he pitched his tent from the sons of Hamor, father of Shechem, for 100 sheep. 100 sheep. So the question is, though, Rashi, we know, would always try to explain the very simple understanding of the verse. If you're looking for a translation of what kasita means, now those people, they lived in Israel, they lived in those places, and in Israel, they understood the word kasita. Yonatan ben Uziel understood it to mean gems, and Onkelos understood it to mean sheep. Why doesn't Rashi explain it like them? Why does he choose something he found what Rabbi Akiva said when he was traveling at far places in the cities, in the far cities of the sea? There they say kesita is a ma'a, which is a common coin in those days. So why would he choose this rather than the more common local understanding of what kesita means? Now, this, of course, Rabbi Akiva we're talking about 1,500 years later. 1,500 years after the story with Yaakov and everything, that's when he traveled, that's when he lived. That's when he traveled and he found that in the far cities, that's what they called them Kesita Ma'a. The question is even stronger. In the Torah itself, we do find a reference to Ma'a, the coin called Ma'a, in a different parsha. A few parshas later, when the Torah tells us Later on in the Torah, it says about in the Parshas Kisisa, when the Torah talks about the mitzvah of giving the shekel. So the Torah says, what is a shekel? A shekel is esrim geira. Shekel is 20 geira. What does Rashi tell us there? Rashi tells us geira is a word that means ma'a. So that makes the question stronger. We already have a translation of ma'a, that ma'a is geira. So if geira is ma'a, then why would the Torah use here the word kasita? If the Torah uses the word kasita, it would be yet another reason to say that, give the translation, kasita maybe means something else, like unkelos, like gems, or sheep. Because we do find, like we see over here, what Rashi himself says, that geira is a word that means ma. All right? So is this understood the questions? So these are the basic question. The other questions, if you remember, we spoke about Rashi's rules, the way the Rebbe explained how Rashi, what is the rules of Rashi? Every word in Rashi is very precise and very exact. And if Rashi quotes a name, he doesn't just give us anecdotal information with no reason. Every piece of information that Rashi offers is for a reason, is because it makes us understand better the message of the pasuk. So going back to the verse, what Rashi explains in our verse, kesita, a coin known as ma. So Rashi says, Rabbi Akiva said, when I traveled to the cities by the sea, they called ma'a kesita. Why do we have to know that it's Rabbi Akiva that said this? Why do we have to know that it happened when he traveled by the cities of the sea? If he wants to, if Rashi wants to say that kasita is ma, he could say very simple, by the cities of the sea, they call it kasita. They call ma kasita. So all of these pieces of information that Rashi offers is exact, and there is reason in that, it's because Rashi wants to teach us something. And again, this is again the Rebbe's brilliant understanding of reading the simple Rashis that may seem very plain, very simple, but yet it is, as the Rebbe always teaches us, this is the 5-year-old that Rashi is teaching. With the 5-year-old mind, the way he reads the verse, and the way what bothers the 5-year-old when he reads the verse that wants to understand. Okay, so again here the questions. Why did Rashi choose an exotic rather than a local translation of the word kasita? Why use the translation? Kasita is what they call it in the far cities, a coin of ma, and not gems or sheep. And number two, why does Rashi relate the source of this translation, that it was heard by Rabbi Akiva when he traveled to the cities by the sea? So to understand this, the Rebbe says, you have to read the verse, the narrative, the story of the portion with the eyes of the 5-year-old. What does he read? He reads a story of Yaakov Avinu coming and traveling all the way after 20 years of being away from his home. He comes and he travels back to his father. Now, where does his father live? He traveled on, oh, by the way, all these places we have what's going on now in Syria, the unbelievable miracles, how things are turning from upside down from one day to another. You see those events that are coming true, the miracles of the coming of Mashiach. It's all connected. Those are the areas that Yaakov Avinu traveled, and he came home, and he came finally to the land of Israel, and he's traveling to his father's home. Where is his father's home? His father's home is in Beersheba, or Gerar, which was somewhere in the south. One second. As we see over here, how much you can see. Yeah. So Yaakov Avinu, he travels back to Eretz Israel, travels all the way from north, coming down south, from east to west. So north, east to southwest. He comes here and he meets the angels, messengers of Esav. He sends the messengers to Esav, and then he travels there, and he comes to the city of Shechem. Comes here to the city of Shechem right here. That's where he comes to Eretz Israel. Where is it? Where is his destination? His destination is to go down south. He has to go down south all the way. At that time, his father went back from Beersheba to Hebron. So he has to come back to his father Yitzchak in Hebron. Okay? So if that is the case, why does the simple child that hears the verse, that reads the verse, that Yaakov Avinu came there, and he set up his tent right there in Shechem, as in the first night he came to Eretz Israel. So right away he buys the land. Why does he buy a piece of land? That's not his place where his destination is. He has another journey to go. He has to go back down to Hebron to come to his father. That is the simple question that the child would ask. And another question, why is it important that the Torah tells us that he bought the land for 100 kesita? Why is it important to know how much it was? It's not like we find by Avram Avinu, and Avram bought the land in Hebron, by the way. When he bought to bury his wife, there was all negotiations. And Avram Avinu knew about the holiness of that particular place. This is the place where Adam and Eve were buried, and so on and so forth. So Avram Avinu wanted to buy it full price, and the Torah said he bought it for 400 shekel, kesef, silver shekel, which was very, very overpriced. And he bought it, he paid full for this. Here, he bought it 100 kesita. If we make the calculation, how many shekels is 100 kesita? So if you go by the calculation, what we said before, that esrim geira a shekel is 20 geira. So if a geira is a ma, it makes a shekel that means 100 ma'ah, 5 shekel, right? So Avram Avinu bought his field for 400 shekel, and here Yaakov bought this place for 100 shekel. So even if the Torah wants to tell us the right price, what he bought it for, so say 5 shekel. Why say that Yaakov bought this place for 100 kesita, 100 more? That's like you're saying, I bought a potato chips. How much did you pay for it? I paid 200 pennies for this. You could just say $2. So what's the point that the Torah says 100 kesita? So these are the questions, says the Rebbe, that bothers Rashi. So again, those are the two questions. Question number one, why did Yaakov buy? You come to a place for a night, go to Airbnb and rent a place. Or what he did anyway, he pitched his tents right there in the open place. It was a public place. But he insisted, no, he went and bought that place. Why did he buy this place? And number two, why is it important to know how much he paid for it? And especially telling us how many pennies, that is the way Rashi says, that he bought it for 100 kesita. Those are the questions. And that gives us a reason to say that Yaakov purchased this land. You know why? Because the verse right before this, we find, as we just said, that this was the very first time after 20 years, Yaakov comes back home to the Holy Land, the land of Israel, the land that he was raised to know and love, the land, the promised land that Hashem promised us. Yaakov Avinu came to that place after 20 years. Not only did he suffer from being away from his parents, not only did he suffer to be in a foreign land and working with a thief, with his evil uncle Lavan, but he's being away from the Holy Land. So the Torah says, as soon as Yaakov came, as the Torah says, and Yaakov came safely to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he arrived from Padan Aram, and he encamped before the city. And right after this, the Torah tells us about his purchase of the land, that piece of land that he pitched his tent. He decided right away to purchase it. And why? Because of the love that he had to Eretz Israel. Even though that wasn't his final destination. It was his love to the Holy Land. So the first place where he arrived after being away for so many years, he decided he doesn't want to be just a guest there. He wants to purchase this land. That will be his piece. Which, by the way, this is one of the Medrash tells us there are 3 places that the nations of the world, see it over here, what's this? Here said the Medrash something very interesting. Look. This is one of the 3 places about which the nations of the world can never castigate the Jewish people and say, you're occupying stolen land, to stolen territory. These are the 3 places. The cave of the Machpelah, which is what Avraham bought in Hebron, the Holy Temple Mount, Jerusalem, that King David bought, and Joseph's burial site. Joseph's burial site is that same place that Yaakov Avinu bought in Shechem. You see, the cave of the Machpelah, as it is stated, and Avram counted out to Ephron the money he had spoken of to the sons of Ches, 400 shekel of valid currency. The Temple Mount, as it is stated, David gave to Ornan for the place shekels of gold weighing 600. And Joseph's burial site, as it is stated, and Yaakov came safely to the city of Shechem, and he bought the part of the field where he had pitched his tent for 100 kesita. All right? So there we have it. So that's why Yaakov Avinu bought this place. And this is something, the love of Eretz Israel is something that throughout the generations, our sages, from father to son, from mother to daughter, they shared the love that they have, and they lived with the idea that of every day by davening, we daven about returning to Yerushalayim. When we eat and we say the Birkat Hamazon, the blessing after the meal, we always talk about the love of Eretz Israel, no Bnei Yerushalayim, and so on. Hashem should build the Jerusalem. Says the Maimonides, our greatest sages would kiss the borders of Israel and its stones and roll in its dust. As the psalmist declares in the psalm, it says, behold, your servants hold her stones dear and cherish her dust. Our sages taught, the sins of those who dwell in Israel are forgiven. As the passage states, the inhabitants will not say, I am sick. The people who dwell there are absolved of sin. That's from Isaiah 33:24. Even one who walks 4 cubits there will merit the world to come. Those buried there receive atonement as if the burial place is an altar of atonement. And that's what Yaakov Avinu felt. And as the Ebenezer says, owning a portion of this land is like owning a portion of the world to come. And again, the Nachmanides talks about Yaakov Avinu. He says, Yaakov did not want to be a guest in the city. He wanted his first entry into Israel to be on his own real estate. This is why he settled in a field and then purchased it to establish ownership in the land. So he didn't wait until he came to his father in Hebron, but he settled there right away. But then again, so we answered why Yaakov Avinu purchased that land that he settled in the first night. Question is still, why do we need to know that it was 100 kesita? 100 kesita, we made a calculation, is like 5 shekel. So it's not a lot of money. And yet the Torah specifies that he bought it for 100 kesita. To answer this question, this is why Rashi does not choose the other interpretations of kesita, as you remember. When we have the 2 other interpretations, that kesita is either gems, like Rabbi Yonatan said, or Uncle says it's 100 sheep. Rashi wants to tell us here that 100 kesita expresses something special about Yaakov Avinu. And this is why he found an interpretation of Rabbi Akiva when he traveled. If they said that kesita is ma'a, now the word kesita is ma, but also using the Yonatan's interpretation, which means gems. So yes, gems is a very expensive thing, which is a ridiculous price. It doesn't make sense that Yaakov would spend such a ridiculous price, 100 gems, for such a simple place to pitch his tent. It's not like buying the Ma'arata Machpelah, the special cave of Abraham that Abraham bought. But the word gems, kesita, also means ornaments, kishutim. What does that mean? That those special coins, which were not a lot in value and face value, but those coins were used as special ornaments. They will make them as special ornaments. So here, Yaakov is purchasing the land, that small piece of land that he pitched his tent, which that itself is the main thing, the main point, that he shows his love to the land, that he purchased it. But when he purchased it, he also went the additional trouble to go and collect and to pay with 100 ornaments, 100 small coins, these coins that are kesita, that are considered ornaments. So sometimes, the Rebbe would give dollars to the people to give tzedakah, and then he would give them dollars, to one to keep and one to give tzedakah. And there was special occasions that the Rebbe would give $1, but it would be a silver dollar. Face value, it's the same as a regular dollar, but you have the special sentiments that you have to this coin. You would give Hanukkah geld. Some parents would take the gold dollar, give the parents a gold dollar to have a special sentiment. Yaakov Avinu went out of his way to make sure to pay this with 100 kesita. And that's what the Rebbe explains here. To explain the significance of this coin, Rashi quotes Rabbi Akiva. When I travel to the cities by the sea, they call them ma kesita. The word kesita connotes kishutim, ornaments. Why would the least valuable coin, the ma, be called an ornament? This demonstrates that sometimes, even if the monetary value of the coin is insignificant, it can have a sentimental value when it is used as an ornament. They are therefore called ornaments. Using the foreign name kesita informs us that Yaakov, out of love for the land, used special coins to purchase a parcel of land in Israel, coins that doubled as ornaments. So that is why Rashi chooses that particular interpretation of what kesita means. It was, and this is throughout the years, people would always have love to Eretz Israel. There was in Yerushalayim, there is where I grew up. If you visited Yerushalayim, I grew up in Ungarische Heiser, next to Mea Shearim. Right there is Kikar Shabbat, the Shabbos Square, Shabbat Square. Right there is a small neighborhood that's called Batei Horenstein, the Horenstein houses. So I just read about the history of these Horenstein houses, that there was a Jew that was named Bel Dober Cohen Horenstein. He was from Ukraine somewhere, and he told his story. He bought these houses, and he came up from Ukraine. He came to Israel. He sold everything in Ukraine, and he came to Israel, and he bought the houses and built those houses outside of the old city, and to help the poor people of Jerusalem. He built institutions there. Beautiful thing what he did. And then he told the story what happened, how he ended up doing it. So he said that he was once a poor man came to him and asked him for money to help with marrying his daughter. And he told him, no problem, I'll give it to you, but one condition. You should invite me to the wedding. He says, of course. And the day came, he gave him the money. I prepared the wedding, but with all this excitement and busyness, he forgot to invite him. And that night, there were two robbers who broke in to this Horenstein's house. They tied up both him and his wife, and they cleaned out everything from the house. And then they told him they're going to kill him. And just that same time, at the other end of town, the wedding is happening, and all of a sudden, the father of the bride remembers, oy vey, I forgot to invite Mr. Horenstein. He right away he took with him whole entourage to come to get to Mr. Horenstein's house and to invite him to the wedding. And they all came there with the noise and this, and sure enough, they caught them right before they executed this Mr. Ornstein. And they saved their lives. They captured those thieves, and before I get there. So this Mr. Ornstein, when he was tied up, he closed his eyes and he made a promise. He prayed to Hashem. He says, if I am getting out of this situation, I'm selling everything, and I'm moving to the Holy Land, and I'm going to build homes for poor people. And sure enough, that's when they came. And they took him and they saved his life, and that's exactly what he did. So back to the story, back to the parsha. So this is what we learn from here. We answered most of the questions, right? We answered why Yaakov Avinu bought this place. We answered why the Torah tells us that he bought it for 100 kesita. And we explained 100 kesita is important to understand because a kesita is a small coin, but it's an ornament, and Yaakov wanted to make it dear. But still the question is, why does Rashi have to mention that this was Rabbi Akiva that told the story, that he gave the explanation of what is Kesita, and where did he do it when he traveled to the city, the far cities of by the sea? And the answer is, it's important to know that this is Rabbi Akiva. When we know who Rabbi Akiva was, it says Rabbi Akiva always tried to look for every opportunity, whatever he saw, to find yet another good thing to say about another Jew. So an example is brought But Rabbi Akiva, when he traveled, he would hear words in other languages, and those, whatever he heard, he gave him clarity, and he used it to help other people, other Jews. For example, it says there is an argument about Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Gamliel, I believe, about what happens if, when a child, God forbid, a young child that dies, and before he had a chance to do any good deeds in this world, does he have a share in the world to come? So one sage said, well, if his father had good deeds, yes, the child takes his father's share. And what happens if his father was a bad person? So the other sage says, no, there's nothing to go with. Rabbi Akiva says, absolutely. And he says, I have a verse in the Tehillim that proves that even a child that has nothing, Hashem guards him. What's the verse? So let's see inside what Rabbi Akiva says. Rabbi Akiva said, they are granted entry to the world to come, as the passage states, God guards petayim. It's a verse in Psalms. Shomer petayim Hashem. Now what does petayim mean? Petayim simply means simpletons or foolish people. Sometimes a person is not too smart. Hashem guards them. Some people do foolish things, and somehow God saves them from their mistakes. But here says Rabbi Akiva, you know what? I saw that verse in Tehillim that says Shomer Petayim Hashem. But guess what? I once traveled outside in a far country, and in that place, I heard them calling children Petaya. Patya. So therefore, he concluded, wait a second, if Petayim means child, I can interpret that verse, Shomer Petayim Hashem. Hashem guards the children. The argument that I had with my sage, where the children have nothing, they didn't have a chance to do anything, do they have a share in the world to come? Yes, because God guards them. That is what is Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says, they are granted entry into the world to come, as the passage states, God guards Petayim in the cities by the sea. They called a child Patya. So that is a question of approach, of an attitude, of what is Rabbi Akiva teaching us, is guiding us. What do we learn from here? Rashi tells us you should know, you see in the verse that the Torah talks about Yaakov Avinu buying with 100 kesita. Why would the Torah say kesita? So he says, wait a second. Rabbi Akiva was traveling to that far land, and he heard that kesita is those ornaments. Hey, that's why the Torah says Yaakov Avinu bought his small piece of land with ornaments. That is why Rashi chooses this, and that is why he quotes that this is from Rabbi Akiva to teach us how we are supposed to act. So Rabbi Akiva traveled far and wide to discover novel ways to put fellow Jews in the best possible light. Says the Rebbe, so intense was Rabbi Akiva's desire to favor Jews that his entire journey to the cities by the sea would have been worthwhile merely to favor the Jews, to gain the ability to determine that children of wicked Jewish parents have a share in the world to come, even if they die young. They didn't have a chance to do anything good. And Rashi hints this by saying, Rabbi Akiva said, when I traveled to the cities by the sea, this was the same visit to the cities by the sea during which Rabbi Akiva heard people calling children patya, by which he determined that children have a share in the world to come. This same visit to the cities by the sea yielded yet another opportunity for Rabbi Akiva, the advocate of Jews. Rabbi Akiva was always Rogil Zakais, B'schusam Shel Israel, advocate of Jews, to highlight the favor of a Jew. He discovered an albeit minor way to demonstrate Jacob's love of Israel. Jacob purchased land he did not intend to use as his permanent home with 100 kesita, on coins that doubled as ornaments. So that's the answer. By telling us that it was Rabbi Akiva who discovered the import of the word kesita, Rashi explains why the Torah says something nominally complimentary about Yaakov, to show that no compliment is unimportant. Small things you see. And that is the lesson, says the Rambam. We now understand why the Torah adds that Yaakov paid 100 kesita. According to Rabbi Akiva, who always sought to favor Jews, we must seek to highlight the Jews' strength at every opportunity. The Torah relates that Yaakov paid 100 kesita, though it is a minor compliment, because we must always share even a minor compliment. When we get into the habit of speaking well of others, it eventually becomes second nature. That is true, by the way, also when we're talking about relationships. You know, my wife is doing now, she's a coach, having a very special approach to deal with women that have issues with their husbands and so on. And this is one of the major points of when you see something, you see a person, you look at the person, you can see 100 things wrong about the person. But when you look hard and you find one small compliment, one small thing that you can add, that you can say something positive, you focus on that small thing, and you build on it. And you build on it. Obviously, that's much more in-depth than what I'm saying, sharing here. And certainly if you need, you can certainly approach Tzipi, and which will give much help to anyone. Many people can testify to that. But this is the lesson from here. So we travel places, we see things, we travel, we see other people, other communities, Jews that speak other languages, they speak with other accents, they have other types of customs. They may, as many things they're like us, other things are not like us. But yet we find something beautiful that we can say, wow, this is what we can take from them. This is what we can learn from them. And overall, of course, we learn about the love to Eretz Israel, especially our rights to the land that Hashem promised us. And then, Bezat Hashem, we'll see the full redemption. Hashem will return the whole full Eretz Israel to the Am Israel with the full Torah Israel. It should be very soon, without wars and without sufferings, only Besuras Tevis. Thank you all for joining. And the questions ready to open up.
Rabbi, thank you very much for the lesson. It's Ezra. I listen to me.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I can hear you, Ezra. Thank you. You're very welcome.
Okay, so thank you very much for the lesson, but I